So my name's Glenn Keeler. I am CUSC's website and marketing coordinator. And with me is Wayne Sun, who is the president of CUSC's board. And we're here to walk you through the registration process for the 2026 survey of middle years students. If you've done this before, it's not radically different. We haven't done anything crazy like make it all a chatbot or something. But it is, there are some things that you should be aware of as you step through this. So what's going to happen is I'm going to present this. If you have questions, you can put those questions into the chat. And Wayne is going to take a look at those. If he can answer, he can answer. But if they need to be redirected to me or there's something of more general interest, then we'll deal with those questions, and we'll do that mostly towards the end of the presentation. So I think we're ready to go here. So let me start sharing my screen. All right. Let's share this screen to begin with. All right, this is more or less our the front page of our website. So if you just go to CUSC-CCREU.ca, then you will get to this page. And sometime tomorrow, the piece in the middle here that says register your institution to participate will show up on that page. It'll also show up in the taking part section of the site. And there's a button here. You click on that button and it will get you to the registration page for the upcoming survey. So let me just share a different page. Yeah. All right. So when you go to the page in the first place, it will probably look somewhat like this. So here you can see that it's telling you this is the registration page, and at the top it talks about being able to save drafts of your registration. So if you want to be able to save drafts of your registration as you go through, it's reasonably lengthy. You can do it in one sitting, but it's helpful sometimes to have it saved so you can look things up. You can create an account on the website at the first link, or if you already have an account, log in using the second link. That way, drafts will be saved as you go through the form, and you'll be able to go back and forth and not lose anything as you do that. So that's reasonably helpful. Other things that will happen here, you'll see down this side, we have a link to our procedures manual. Our procedures manual is really helpful in going through the registration process. It has everything you could possibly need to participate in the CUSC survey. So you'll see we go from about CUSC, so what's our purpose, why are we doing all this, to a particular introduction to this survey. Then we talk about participation and interactions with the survey contractor, a timeline for when things need to be done. A really important one is the sample definition. You need this to be able to go through the registration. You need to know what the sample definition is. And so there's a standard sample there. And we also talk about the special sample and an administrative sample that you can add. The special sample are students who don't meet the definition, but that you want to include in this survey. And the administrative sample are records you want to include that actually just are triggers that let you know administratively when invitations or reminders have been issued for your survey. It goes on and talks about all the incentives. You need to know about that for registration because that's part of the questions we ask is, are you going to have incentives for your survey? And we strongly encourage that. That's, by our research, the most effective thing for improving participation. Things like additional questions or omitting questions, all the information you need about those invitations and reminders. That's all there. Then we talk a little bit about our survey module and some of the data files and reports that you get. You're selecting possibly some of these. Most of them, a lot of them come in the standard package, but there are things you can add on. So this gives you a little bit more description than what you get in the actual registration form. So this procedures manual is vital. That's why we put a link on it. I actually suggest that you open it up in a separate tab as you're going through the form so that you can quickly jump back and forth. There are also links within the form itself. So you can jump to a new tab for the section that is specifically about the question that you're on in that form. All right, I'm going to switch screens one more time. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when we are logged in. All right, so this is what that same page looks like when you're logged in. The top part about logging in, creating an account goes away because you're already logged in, and that allows us to start saving things. Other things that are on this page as quick links, you can link to the survey instrument itself, to the module questions, to the data licensing and membership agreement. Um, we'll talk a bit about that when we get there in the form. And then the PRA privacy agreement template, which you may or may not require. Your institution might require you to have an agreement with PRA because you are transferring contact information for survey people who students you want to include in your survey. So you should take advantage of all of those links. You can also link to all of these through the procedures manual. All right. So it's a form like almost every other form that you've ever worked on. And I'm going to put in not very meaningful names here, but the town of Test in BC. I really hope there isn't a town of Test in BC. Is there. And you'll notice down here on these navigation buttons, next takes you to the next one. It does save the draft, but if you just wanted to save the draft for the page you're on, you can get that. That there is an error checking as well that happens, but for the most part, you'll be able to work your way through this without errors. I'm logged in on a test account that doesn't quite have the rights that you will have on this. All right, let's go through and fill in the rest. So we ask for contacts. We ask for a primary contact. That's the person who's actually in charge of doing the work for CUSC. So if we had a problem with invitations or we need information from them, this is the person that PRA will be contacting during the administration of the survey. The secondary contact is kind of the backup person to that primary person. So we do ask that you have two because sometimes we can't get a hold of the person that you put in as a primary contact. So this gives us someone to talk to when things aren't going well. So you should put somebody in there as well. We also need a financial contact. So this is the person, or it may be an office that you put in here, who will be helping with your payment of the various fees. So it could be the accounts receivable or accounts payable office. Well, I don't want to put in a real email address here. We'll just use the same one. Otherwise, they would start getting information, emails that they don't know what to do with. All right, so that's all the contacts. And this comparison is quite finicky. It does like everything to be the same. All right, so here we go. Here's the first sort of decision point you have. Everything that's a link to the procedures manual has this format. It says PM and then the section of the manual. If you click on that link, it's going to open a separate tab to display that section for you. In this question, you're being asked about whether you're participating as a member or a non-member. And so the link is kind of important because it tells you the differences. If you are participating as a member, you pay a membership fee. You get the national student data set when when the survey is complete. You get to engage in the organization. You can attend the AGM. You can vote on items at the AGM, and you could serve on the board or on some of our committees if you participate as a member. If you participate as a non-member, basically all of that organizational stuff goes away and you get your data, but you don't get other institutions' data. So we'd encourage you to participate as a member. You get the best value for your work out of that. We don't, I think. I'm looking at Wayne for confirmation. I don't think we have collaboration groups this year. We have had, last year we had 2. So this year, if you're in a collaboration group, it's a surprise to us too. If you say yes, it'll open up a spot for you to type in what that group is, but we're going to leave that at no. There are a couple of links to explain collaboration groups, in which are really just subsets of institutions that are going to share data, and we're looking at collecting information for them specifically. And in some cases, they add specific questions to the survey. Then we go through and we look at the total population of students at your institution who are part of the standard sample. That's where you want to read that definition of a standard sample. This year is middle year students. So that means students who didn't start in the fall of this year, who are still current students, and who are not on the verge of graduating. So between those 2 points, not first year, not graduating, students in the middle. Usually for 4-year programs, that means you've got a couple of years of students. And we are looking for the number of students you have who meet that definition. We'll come back and talk about actual surveying in just a second. If you don't know that number off the top of your head, please do your best to give us an estimate. So I used to work at a quite small institution, so I'm going to put 500 in there as a number. This is where that number can be, we want you to tell us whether it's an actual number or an estimate. Then you might be choosing not to survey everyone who qualifies. So let's say you're big university X and you have 20,000 students in that middle years group. You might not want to be surveying 20,000 students. While many institutions use this as a census, they'll send the survey invitation to everybody who qualifies. Some do limit it and select a number out of that. If they're doing that, it's typically a number of 1,000. But you can choose other sample sizes that you might need. In my case, I'm going to type in that I'm going to actually survey 500. That's the same as the number that I had there. Now we get to the special sample. As I said, special sample are people who don't meet the standard sample definition, but that you want to survey anyway. And you can use this in a couple of ways. One is to oversample particular populations of students. You may want to be surveying First Nation students or international students or other groups, and you want to survey ones that don't really meet the criteria, but you want to get the number up so that your results are significant in your data that you get. So if you say yes, we're going to ask you how many. If you say no, then that goes away. All right. So we've picked 500. That's how many I said I want to survey. And from here, you can see the costs related to doing that. And up to 500 is $33.55. You'll notice the estimated total so far includes my membership and participation fee. So these little boxes show up periodically through the form where we're kind of doing a total for you. We're not going to ask you to put your credit card in at the end, but it does help you be aware of what the costs are as you're going through the process. There's lots of increments of different students here. There's maybe a handful of institutions that would use the bottom one, which is more than 15,000 students. That one we'd have to give you a particular quote on how much that's going to cost. Then we get to survey results package options. You can choose which language you get your survey results in. You can choose French or English. And if you are a bilingual institution, there are some options later on to give you some reports in both languages. So hang on for those. But this is what's the primary language you want your results to come to you in. The second part is when would you like to be invoiced? And this has to do with when your fiscal year is and which fiscal year you're trying to get these costs into. So if you are if you have a fiscal year end of March 31st, which is really common, you might choose before March 31st to get it into the current fiscal year. If you needed it in the next fiscal year, you could say after March 31st. If your fiscal year isn't March 31st and you need to do the same thing, you can specify a date. The big box down here is we do send the invitations to students' institutional email addresses. And there may be particular instructions that are needed by PRA to be able to send that many emails to your institutional addresses. One or two is usually not a problem. When you start sending 1,000 at once, then spam systems kick into gear and start trying to filter stuff out. So if there are any instructions that you have, you just paste them into that box and they'll be sent to PRA so that they're ready to do what they need to do to get through your systems. There is a section in the procedures manual about this that you could link to for more detail. Then you get some survey dates. When do you want your survey to start? Well, I'm going to see if I can start this in January, even though I have nothing to say about this anymore. And we'll choose January 19th. So you just pick the day. That date shows up later on as you go through this process. So you should be reasonably sure about the dates you're going to administer this survey, but that doesn't mean they can't be adjusted after the fact. Once you submit this, PRA will be in contact with you to confirm all of this operational information. Now, you can have it close as late as the 12th of April, but that's a long time for it to be going. So I'm actually going to close this survey on the 9th of March, a little bit shorter time frame. So you can do that. The one downside of choosing that particular time frame is there's a spring break in the middle of it. So you can put in what are the dates of your spring break, and for us, it's going to be that third week of February. So that's the spring break, and that way we won't send out reminders during the spring break period. It'll always be times when students are theoretically engaged in your institution. Then comes the question about incentives. Are you using incentives or no? We default it to yes because we encourage you to use incentives. That really does improve your survey performance. The number of prize draws is totally up to you. You can have up to 2 at the same price. Once you get over 2, though, then we start to charge for the additional draws. It doesn't matter how many students are selected in each draw. You could pick 10 students in one draw, that would still be one draw. But if you picked one student in 3 separate draws, that's 3 separate draws. So work through this carefully. One draw is usually the best for most people, but there is an excess charge for over 2. Then you can say how you want this draw to happen. It defaults to a random draw from respondents, or PRA can send you the whole list of respondents and you do your own random draw. So what's happening here is your PRA is letting you make the selection. Um, I usually leave it as PRA selecting it. That way, when I was working at the King's University, it was arm's length. Nobody was in my office was involved in making that draw. Then you get to pick the incentive draw dates. I like to make these relatively close to the survey close date. So that's what I'm doing. If you have more than one draw, you have add, and I'm not sure why it's squeezed off to the side here, but there's also a remove button. So if we had two draws, we could click the add button, then add another date. Then there are optional additions to this process. You can send additional reminder emails. Uh, so two reminders are included in the survey results package price. So these are additional. So the word additional appears throughout here. Two is usually enough unless you have an extraordinarily long survey period. But you could add an additional reminder. Maybe you've picked 3 weeks and you want a reminder to go each week, but one just before the close. You could have two reminders if you wanted. Lots of people choose none, but you can choose how many reminders you get. I will note that during the administration of the survey, you can talk to PRA. If the numbers aren't quite what you want in terms of responses, you can talk to PRA about adding an additional reminder actually during the administration of the survey. Additional questions. You can add your own custom questions to the survey. These would be questions that only your students get. Um, they do have to be reviewed. We review those questions to make sure that they aren't duplicating something that's already in the survey, to make sure that they are structured in an appropriate way for not just the survey, but the survey software. And sometimes people have different definitions of what is one question than we do. So if you're asking, here's this thing, give me one of four responses, that's one question. If you are giving me what looks to you like a question, here are 5 statements. Please rate your response to each of those 5 statements. Sadly, that's 5 questions. So that's an important distinction that you need. So if you're going to use additional questions, you need to estimate the number of questions you're going to get. And there's a huge range of estimate. Let's just pick 2. You'll see it moves up here as the number of questions. They're $210 a piece. So you want to be, concise, as few questions as you need, but no fewer than you need. So you can choose that. There's also a maybe response here where you're not sure, but maybe doesn't last forever. As you approach your date for administering your survey, you have to have this nailed down because it does need to be programmed in by PRA. That takes some time. So we do encourage this to be resolved reasonably quickly. You can send your questions to the email address here. This is Linda Cupp's email address, and she will route them to our additional questions committee, who will do the review. And they do that relatively quickly, so that it doesn't take too long to know if there's any issues. We have many more optional additions. You can do comparison reports where you choose. Now, this is only available to members, but it allows you to select your own group of institutions to do comparisons with. For the master reports, we break up all of the participants into 3 groups, but that might not match what you're interested in grouping. You may be more geographically oriented or others, and you can have us do the comparison reports for you. You can choose getting those in 1 language or 2, so you can add that. You can also get data tables with tests of significance. Again, this is members only. And this allows you to get those significance calculations. So if you're doing detailed statistical work, this helps offload some of that burden from you because it'll come calculated in that. Again, for members only, you can choose an executive report. And this drafts an executive report of your results that you can share pretty quickly with your senior admin, and they can deal with that. That is useful in some institutions to have a fast response that you can do out. So you can offload that. Again, it's available in English or French, or you can get it in both languages. You can also have uh, categorization of open-ended responses. Now, this one we can't give you a total cost on because it's 67 cents for each respondent who completed an open-ended question. So if they didn't answer it, it doesn't get charged. But if they did and it's categorized, then it's 67 cents per categorized response. So you can choose that. That helps you if you may not be a shop that's set up for that kind of open-ended response analysis. So this can help you with that. Just a note that all the reports are in electronic format, delivered through a secure FTP process. So that should be your expectation for how this will be distributed when we're all ready for that late June, early July. Uh, Learning management system. Some learning management systems allow you to insert links into students' individual accounts so that they can do that. This is sort of a supplement to the email invitations and reminders. It's the same link. I used this all the time when I was at King's, not for a learning management system, but we could at that point put it into our student portal. So I found a very useful thing to include, and it's relatively inexpensive, $105. So that's pretty useful. Then there's quick facts. Now you get quick facts in your standard report and the institution long reports. But if you ordered them in English and you want them in French, this is where you would choose to get the translated version of that to get those results. If you ordered your results in French and you were getting these in English, that it would switch the languages on this question. But you can choose to have those two come in both languages for you if that's helpful. We do have a module this year. We're asking questions about student and their access to and sources of food as they're studying through the year, why they choose those particular outlets, and any concerns they might have about that food situation. There's no cost to the module, but you do choose whether you opt in or not. So you can say, no survey module, and or leave it at participating in survey module. Wayne can correct me. I think it's 10% of the students that we ask of your sample. It'll be 10% of them that are selected into the module. You can go see the module questions at the link below here if you're interested in the detail we're asking for. Doesn't add a lot. It's a relatively brief set of questions, but it is a companion to the housing study that we did last year. All right, then you get to the end and you're probably all exhausted at this point. You can put in any additional comments about your registration in here that you would like. If there was something that occurred to you, a question, you can write those all in there, and that's fine. There are some notes. This is all subject to GST or HST, depending on where you are, and it's your province that determines what we charge as that. And then there's a note about withdrawal, and there are conditions about withdrawal. We need generally about 2 weeks notice from your scheduled start date if you're going to withdraw. And then there's financial implications. If you give us less than 2 weeks notice, then we do retain your participation fee. So do be aware that there are implications about withdrawing. Phew. And then you get to the very end where you can go through and review all of your answers to all of the sections of this registration form. It is admittedly a long scroll here, but you'll get down to the bottom and you'll see, oh, it looks like we're 3960 is what we're headed for this one. Then I'll hit submit here. I could go back and change some. You can go back directly and edit through these buttons, but hopefully everything's correct, and you hit submit, and magic, there we go, all registered. And what has happened in the background is an email is going to be sent to the primary and secondary contacts saying you've registered for this. And an email will go to the financial contact that you've given us. And that it gives more information about your institution signed up for this. There'll be an invoice. If you're not already signed up for paying by EFT, there's instructions about how that can be accomplished to save all the costs of doing it on checks and through the postal system. So that's there. It does mean you might need to send a quick email to confirm that you actually registered for this to your accounts payable office, just so that they're not suspicious of this random email that they didn't expect to come is showing up. All right. So that is my walk through our registration process. Wayne, have we gotten any questions out of the chat?
No, I'm not seeing any questions at this point, but obviously do welcome anyone to ask if they have any questions. And if it's easier, you don't have to type it in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself and
Yep.
we can have a discussion. As Glenn mentioned, I think the procedures manual is a huge resource for everyone, and I think that has a lot of information that will help hopefully um, address some of the questions you may have. But happy to answer anything that's on top of mind right now.
Yep. I'll just note, if you forgot to write down the procedures manual link or closed it and you said, oh no, I wanted that link for future reference. If you go to our website, it is always along the bottom of the pages. There's this little bottom menu that shows up, and procedures manual is the last item on that menu. So you can always get to it through that. All right. There are, I think, two questions in there. Is the membership fee free? No, the membership fee is not free. The membership fee is it's $500 if you're participating in the survey as a member, and that is your membership fee and your participation fee. If you're a non-member, then it's $250 that you're paying just the participation fee in the survey. So it's not free. That would be nice, but it's not free unless you happen to win the draw that we had associated with attending this webinar. But that's not universal. That's just individual institutions. And then
Yeah,
the
and
last
then
one,
yeah, go
yeah.
ahead. No, you go
The
ahead.
no, the next one is the government of Alberta required PSIs to participate and paid for that. Uh, that agreement is still in place, but the government pays for participation in the first year and the graduating student surveys. The middle year student surveys, they don't pay for. So the funding agreement is still in place, but this year they don't pay for that. Next year, for the graduating student survey, they will be paying for it. All right.
Yeah,
Uh,
thanks, Glenn. I'm not seeing any other questions.
all right.
But if something comes up, obviously we are here. As Glenn mentioned, you can email Linda at the admin at CUSC-CCREU.ca email address. Um, if you can't find anything on the in the procedures manual, um, yeah, we're obviously here to help you through the registration process or answer any questions regarding the survey.
All right. Well, thank you all for attending. We appreciate people's expressing their interest and wanting to go through this process together. So we appreciate having you all here.
Great.